Every autumn, Jan Otava made the same journey. He would fatten his geese through the summer, load them up in October, and walk the roads of southern Moravia, selling them at market towns along the way. It was honest work, predictable work. He had done it for years without incident. This year, he brought a boy. Josef Sabinský was 11 years old. Neither of them came home. The village was called Moutnice. Welcome to Cold Block. In 1882, Moutnice was a small agricultural village south of Brno, in the Moravian heartland of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Czech lands were prospering, industrializing, yes, but still rooted in the rhythms of agrarian life. Men like Jan Otava were part of that rhythm. The goose trade was real commerce. Fattened geese were a luxury product, sold to wealthier households, urban markets, seasonal buyers. A man with 130 geese and a well-walked route could make a season's income in a fortnight on the road. He was, in other words, a man who carried money. And somewhere on the road to Moutnice, someone noticed. In November 1882, Tomáš Moravčák of Kojetín began to worry. His father-in-law, Jan Otava, had not come home. He retraced the route. Village by village, he asked the same question. In Moutnice, the answer was always the same. Yes, the hussar had been here. Yes, the boy too. They had 3 geese left. A local smallholder named Tomáš Krupa had bought them. And then they were gone. The break came not from Krupa's door, but from a cobbler. A man named Sadílek walked into the gendarmerie post in Židlochovice, carrying a pair of boots. They were not his boots. He knew whose they were. The gendarmes now had a direction. What they would find when they looked was worse than anything Moutnice had seen. In December 1882, a judicial commission arrived in Moutnice. In the presence of the court, the bodies of Jan Otava and Josef Sabinský were exhumed. The Czech press was waiting. The Národní listy reported on the 20th of December, České noviny the following day, and the Catholic Weekly Czech, read across Bohemia and Moravia, framed the case in the language its readers understood best, not as a criminal matter, but as a moral catastrophe. 2 men had been killed. One was a seasonal worker who had walked this road a dozen times without harm. The other was 11 years old. Suspicion fell first on Tomáš Krupa, the last confirmed person to have bought from the 2 travelers. He was a local domkaz, a small holder. But the investigation quickly widened. Krupa was not alone. The record shows a group of local men known in the village as ruffians and thieves. Tomáš Krupa, his mother Františka Krupová, Filip Vahala, and František Kubinek. The gendarmerie in Židlochovice had their suspects. What the files do tell us is that this was no impulsive act by one man. It was a calculated robbery on Krupa's own yard. The evidence, the boots, the blood, the stolen goods found in their homes, pointed straight at all 4. Three geese, whatever cash Jan Otava had left in his pouch from a season's work. That appears to be the sum of what 2 lives were worth to this group of villagers. It is worth stopping here, before the trial, before the verdict, and sitting with that. Historians of crime often focus on the extraordinary. The Moutnice case offers us something different and, in its way, more disturbing. An act of appalling ordinariness committed by people who knew their neighbors and knew the road. A smallholder and his circle saw an opportunity and took 2 lives for it. Josef Sabinský was 11 years old. He had been hired simply to herd geese. His death was, in the coldest possible sense, incidental. The Catholic press of 1882 understood this. They named it sin. We might name it differently today, a failure of every moral and social structure that was supposed to make the road from Kojetín to Moutnice safe. The question those newspapers asked in December 1882 has not aged. What is a human life worth? And who decides? By spring 1883, the case had moved from the gendarmerie to the courts. On April 7, 1883, the main hall of the Brno Regional Court was packed. The Czech press in Brno, the Moravská Orlice, covered the proceedings, as did the German-language Mährisches Tagblatt. The evidence assembled from December, the boots brought by the cobbler Sadílek, the witness accounts, the Judicial Commission's findings, the blood on the walls and floor, was laid before the judges. The jury delivered its verdicts. Tomáš Krupa was sentenced to death for double premeditated murder. Filip Vahala received life in hard labor. Františka Krupová was sentenced to 5 years hard labor for complicity. František Kubinek received 5 months for aiding and harboring the others. By late summer 1883, in the eyes of the law, the case of the Moutnice murders was closed. The case did not stay in Moravia. By January 1883, the American, a Czech-language weekly published in Chicago, had carried the story to the New World. Czech men and women who had left Bohemia and Moravia for a better life in Illinois were reading about the boy who never came home from the Goose Road. It is a small detail, but it speaks to something real. Jan Otava and Josef Sabinský were not forgotten immediately. They were mourned in Czech, in German, in Catholic and liberal and regional newspapers across the empire. For a few months in the winter of 1882 and 1883, their names were known. Then the papers moved on. New crimes, new trials, new seasons. The village of Moutnice went back to its rhythms. It was not until 2020, 138 years later, that the Moutnické Zpravodaj, the village gazette, published a reconstruction of the case. A small article, a few pages. A village remembering something its ground still holds. We do not know what Jan Otava was thinking when he set out that last autumn. Probably nothing unusual. Probably the price of geese in Moutnice. Probably when he would be home. Josef Sabinský was 11. We know almost nothing else about him. We know he herded geese. We know he was small enough that a single line in a newspaper could describe his presence by saying simply, "He was the boy who helped with the geese." That is what the record preserves. The question is not really about any one of the 4 who stood trial. The question, the one the newspapers of 1882 were already asking, is simpler and harder than any of that. What does it mean when a child's life weighs less, in someone's calculation, than the price of 3 geese? We have been asking that question for a long time. We have not finished answering it. Not every crime leaves a body on a road. Some leave a place, a building, a name that a village stops saying out loud. In 1925, something happened at a mill in the Bohemian countryside. The people who lived nearby had a word for it afterwards. They called it a curse. That word has followed Rajský Mlýn for 100 years. If you made it this far, you already know what this channel is about. Like the video, subscribe to Cold Block, and stay with us. There's always another door.